Okay, so thank you, Philip, for joining us for another great chat. Well, assumedly, gonna be great chat for To Your Eternity, Volume 3. You've got the
Okay.
better, yeah, you're doing the physical, so it works out better for this.
Yeah.
What did you think? Overall thoughts? Did you like this one? How you feeling about the story so far?
Yeah, it just keeps taking these quirky twists that I could never have anticipated.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I see some patterns now, maybe
Mhm.
in the storytelling. Now that we're three in, I could be wrong. But I do think that the mangaka Yoshitoki Oima, that's probably terribly pronounced, but she does seem to like to stick a knife in my heart and twist it a little bit. So I'm gonna have to get used to that. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, this was quirky too. I mean, there's still some of
Mhm.
the stuff in here was like, what? Where did this come from? But
What did you find quirky? Because I didn't find anything quirky. So,
really,
yeah,
okay,
but I think it's just because 'cause I'm getting more used to manga. So
probably
what did you find quirky?
because my manga experience so far has been much more the adult
Yeah.
oriented ones, I think, which I forget the word for, but you know what I mean. There's
Yeah.
what is it?
Sh
Same.
seinen.
Saying it. I knew the word. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is probably the most of the ones we've read. Vinland Saga was kind of
It had a couple moments, but it was
yeah,
very realist.
yeah. So this is the most. And although there's some hard stuff in here too. There's
Yeah.
painful stuff, but I would say
Was it the helmet that
that was
there's a
one of the
helmet?
things for sure. Was the helmet he was going around with, and
Yeah.
just like stuff out of like left field, like the guy who makes the liquor, Booze Man. I mean,
Oh, putting the extra organ in his
his
body.
stomach? What? I mean, what?
I didn't even blink at that.
Now that is quirky, Murphy. Murphy, that is quirky.
I didn't even I was like, "Oh, sure. Of course they did." Like,
See, now that's the difference between you and me. You're the veteran here, and
oh, I'm super not though.
I'm
I'm
the doe-eyed
super
and
not.
kind of like a deer in headlights here. So yeah,
That's so funny. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot of absurdist nature to a lot of manga. You just kind of have to if they say something happened, then you're like, "Sure. Yep. Of course it did."
Just go with it. Yeah, I'm learning. I'm learning.
Yeah, which I love absurdist uh literature. So,
Okay. Okay.
I guess it works out for me.
Well,
So we got introduced pretty early on to a new character who is very relevant. Gugu is maybe his name.
Gugu. That's what I went with. Gugu. Yeah.
It feels like we're doing it wrong. So commenters, feel free to correct us for the future because he does seem like he is going to carry over into the next volume. But initial impressions on Gugu, his brother, his life.
Oh, I mean, like I said, knife in the heart. I mean, this poor kid,
Yeah.
so earnest and so hardworking and so beautiful in his acceptance of people around him.
Yeah.
I really love that about him and how he's been dealt some pretty bad cards, but he seems to always just go with it and do his best. And he's a
Yeah.
little trooper, and when he got squashed by the log thing in the process of saving, we're going to go with Reen, and please do correct me.
Yeah. Correct. Any
Rian, Reen.
Rian. Yeah. I don't know.
Uh, I feel like, geez, he kept getting, his brother abandons him. He gets smashed with a log in the process of saving this girl that he has a crush on.
Yeah.
He's disfigured by the booze man and has alcohol, some kind of apparatus put in his stomach. And
Extra organ, man. Normal
extra
stuff.
organ. Yeah, real handy. Yeah. Uh, and just everything happens to this poor kid. And I'm
Yeah.
just thinking, I actually thought he wouldn't make it through
I didn't
this.
think he was. I didn't think he
I
would either.
actually thought, okay, another adorable kid who's dealt a bad lot and isn't going to survive a volume again. But he actually made it to the
He
end.
made it for
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows what's to come?
What did you think of the volume overall?
Yeah, no, I mean, so for Gugu specifically, I love his character. He is such a resilient kid and such a hopeful child, like even when his brother left him, he had this I think, forced attitude of, "Oh, he's just working. He's gonna come back to me. It's fine," you know?
A lot of that
And
denial again in the series. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and every kind of slap across the cheek that he got, he was just like, "Yep, gonna keep working, gonna keep moving, no worries, I'll save my money back up. No problem, I'll keep going. It's okay, I'll keep going." And even with, Reen, when he knocks her aside in order to save her and gets crushed by the log, he's lying there under the log, and you can hear the dialogue around him where people are saying, "Oh, good, Reen, you're safe. Oh, I'm so glad you're okay." Like, nobody's even noticing him. And he's
Right.
just lying there under the log going, "Oh, good, she's safe." Like, he's such a compassionate, sweet kid
Yeah.
that really just seems to want to try hard and get the most out of life that he can and help other people. And there's just a lot of tenderness to him that I really like. But then at the same time, he had that dialogue with Fushi when he was like, "Do you have any family? What's your life? What's your past? Do you have any siblings?" Actually, it's probably better that you don't know if you have any siblings. Yeah, it's like, so you can see that he has that underlying hurt, that underlying pain of like, maybe it's best if you don't actually remember where you
Yeah.
come from and who you come from, because it's probably just going to cause pain anyway.
Yeah. Oh gosh, poor kid. I actually wanted to ask you, do you think, because even though he goes through all this and he's treated so poorly, like with his brother, he finds him in an alley and passed out and realized, oh my goodness, look what happens to my brother. And he gives him the ring. He puts the ring in his palm and says, "Here, you do something with this because I'm basically, I'm going to be a monster no matter what I do, and I have no chance at happiness. Maybe you can make something of your life here, brother." And he gives him. He's. I'm just wondering. I'm calling it denial, like it's a negative thing, right? But is as a coping mechanism or as a survival thing, is it bad actually to be in some kind of denial, to convince yourself that things are okay? Or is that actually a good thing to help you get through life?
That's a good question.
Because he maintains his innocence, he maintains his goodness. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's very much linked to his, I'm calling it denial, and maybe there's a better word for it, but I
Hmm.
think it's very much linked to his ability to just keep going and say, it's going to be okay. I'm just going to keep trying.
Hmm.
So would he have been compassionate? Is compassion always good? In that moment, that act of compassion for his brother, was that a good thing or not?
Mm.
Would the brother have just found the ring and said, "Great, now I can get more booze," or waste it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think these are complex questions, maybe.
They are complex questions. They're very complex questions. I think different people would give you a different answer on that,
Uh-huh.
in if they think that some facet of denial is good because it leads you to a more peaceful existence, and others would say, "No, look life's dark in the face no matter what it brings you."
Hmm.
So that is an interesting question. How do you answer that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're supposed to answer it
Sorry.
for me.
I'll tell you what I think. I'm a ruthlessly optimistic person, so I relate to him a lot and would certainly, I think I always try to look on the positive side. Like, we didn't talk about this before we started, but I just injured my ankle and I'm currently in a boot and walking around with a cane, and I'm
Oh,
just
are
like,
you really? Oh no.
so I'm just like, "Okay, I can't go on my walks anymore. I can't work out. I can't rock climb. I can't do all the things that I love. No problem. I'm gonna work on deep cleaning the house because I can get around the house. And this is great because I can now take care of something that I've been putting off." And like, I'm very much like, find the joy, find what works. And that doesn't mean denying the negative, but it's
Right.
a matter of like, I could wallow or I could figure out a way to make this work for me, you know? So I don't know. I like him and I like his life perspective, even if it leads to, because I don't think that he's deluded himself to the
Uh-huh.
point that he is not willing to accept reality. Like when he was talking to Fushi, he obviously is aware. Like, he's not making up a different
He's
reality
not
in his mind.
stupid. He's not
He's
stupid.
not stupid. He's not deluding himself. He knows what reality is.
Right.
He's just choosing to push forward despite it and to find the optimism in life. And like with the ring, I don't know why he chose not to spend it on himself even before he deemed himself a monster. I kind of thought it was sentimentality because he loved Breen, um, and he didn't want to spend what was a gift. But then once he saw someone who could benefit from using it, he surrendered the thing that he was holding on to out of love because he wanted to give his brother a chance at life. And what his brother does with that gift is up to him. He could waste it. He could go get more booze and end up in the alley again. That's up to his brother. That doesn't matter. What matters is that he chose to sacrifice something for someone else. And that's the life that he's chosen to live. And that's something that I consider noble and a life worth living. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That's a wonderful answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so sorry about your ankle. Gosh.
It sucks. It's all right. I'm drink some milk, walk it off. It's gonna be great.
Yes. You'll be back in no time.
In no time.
Back at that rock climbing and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I fell rock climbing. That's what
I was gonna ask. I was like, should I ask or not?
Yeah, I fell off the wall.
Oh, no.
It was my own dumb fault. There was a hold that was out of reach, but I was climbing with other people and we were all hyping each other and they're like, you got it, you got it. And I was like, well, if I jump, I might get it. So I jumped and I was bouldering, so I wasn't tied into the wall. So I jumped and I didn't get it and I fell and I didn't fall right and I cracked my ankle and it's fine. So another cool thing, something that I really liked, a parallel, is he was wishing for a new life. He was looking for like, oh, look at this great future. I want a different life. And he got a different life, and it was the life of a monster. Yeah. And then we have Fushi, who is a monster of sorts. And Fushi is trying to learn to cook and to clean and to have these basic human skills. And Gugu is, it just seems wrong. And Gugu is, he has all these basic human skills, and now he's being treated as a monster. And they kind of find that common ground of like, we're better this way. Like, kind of, we're different. This is the life that we're embracing with each other. And I feel like we are far from the end. I hope we're far from the end of Gugu's journey, like where that takes him. But it seems to be a journey of self-acceptance.
Yeah, I think so. And I love how there's a certain section that's even labeled brothers, I think, somewhere in there. And they do.
I love that.
They find kinship with one another. And I think it's beautiful. And of course, Fushi is here to learn. He started to learn compassion from March. Yeah. And I see some parallels between Gugu and March as well. Yeah. And in the role that they assume in relation to Fushi, March wanted to be his mommy, and Fushi's Gugu is his older brother, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So there's kind of a similarity there.
Both trying to care for him. Yeah.
He's being cared for. And he actually ends up really being a protector too later on when he gets the flame onto it. Gets a name in this one. I forget what it was called, but Knocker. It's a knocker.
Knocker. That was the one. Yes. Knocker. It's also interesting that it was important to Gugu that no one saw his face until it wasn't. Yeah. But then when Reen returned, then it was important again. But other than just like random people who saw him and were terrified or like rejected him because of his appearance, we do have that one scene where Fushi, shucks, my iPad just went to sleep, where Fushi pulls the helmet off of him. And looks at him right in the face. Yeah. And he's like, I'm ugly, aren't I? Isn't this terrible? And Fushi just puts the helmet on himself. He's just like, oh, cool, a helmet, whatever. Like, yeah. And I think that did a lot for their bond as well. And for Gugu taking him in as a brother, as a little brother, because of that non-reaction.
Yeah. Because Fushi has not been socialized. He has not learned derogatory labels. He's innocent in that way, and I love that. That's a nice touch too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I had a question for you actually. Yeah. What do you think, since you mentioned him taking off the helmet and everything, what do you think of the decision of the mangaka not to show Gugu's
The
face.
the disfigurement.
Ever. I mean, you see a bit of his eyes, but
Yeah.
I think it's obviously very deliberate that
Yeah.
she chose never to show his face, at least in this volume. I don't
In this
know
volume.
future ones, but what do
I
you think?
assumed we were going to see it eventually, and it was going to be a reveal.
Okay. Oh, is that a manga thing?
Oh, yes, yes, it is. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean that that's what's happening here. But yes, it is normal to just kind of shade and shadow someone until you get their reveal,
Right.
which doesn't mean that that's what's happening here. But I assumed
Happened in
it
one of the other
because
ones.
I'm sorry,
That happened in one of the other mangas we read. I can't
it
remember
did.
which one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I think it was Vinland Saga, and I'm pretty sure it was
Yeah.
Prince's dad. It was the king, wasn't it?
Yes. It
Rabbit?
was Knut's dad. Yes.
Knute's dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, but that doesn't mean that that's what's happening here, but we did have the reveal of Reen, where she was like, this horrible scar, it's not healing, I need help, right? And then we see it, and it's this little thing. And there was a piece of me that was like, oh, that's what's happening with Gugu. We're finally going to see this face, and it's just like a broken nose. Like, it's a little bit wonky. But then we went through the whole process of people being revolted by him. So I don't think that's actually what it is. I've assumed that we were going to see it, but I could be wrong.
Huh. Yeah, I was intrigued by that. The fact that we never did see his face. And I wondered if that was a decision on her part because she doesn't want us to judge him. Also, in a way, not seeing something like that can make it worse, I guess, in your imagination. Because you keep imagining. Whereas if you get to see it, you get used to it. You get accustomed to something when you've been around it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So she's not allowing us that ability to do so.
Yeah, at least at this point. And I wonder strategically, in terms of the storytelling, why she's doing that. Because I do think if we had a look at him, then we would be, oh, okay, initial, but then you get used to it because that's the way people are.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if he's had that mask on all the time and everyone's encountering him for the first time, is like, so that's just human nature, I think, to some degrry.
Sure.
Which is
To
why
see
it's
something
really
different and
really
respond.
important to be exposed to things that are different, right?
Absolutely.
In order that people can be compassionate and empathetic when they encounter those who aren't, who have these differences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is clearly set in a time period where, if you're not able-bodied, then you're looked down on a lot more so than what is the life that we're accustomed to. What did you think about the scene where Gugu was harming Fushi in order to experiment with him? What can you create? What can you do? Let me stab you. Let me burn you. You know that scene? How did you take that?
Yeah, that probably not Gugu's finest moment in the volume. He's somebody who's been hurt a lot, so he understands pain, I think.
Yeah.
And he's obviously intrigued. He's a child, he's curious, like, oh, I can do this to you, and oh, look, you heal up. Wow. Oh, now you can make a knife pop. In the process of that scene, we learn a little bit more about how Fushi works too, I think. But yeah, that was, I hope, just a child's curiosity, and that if he had been more mature, he would not have done something like that to Fushi.
I don't know. I feel like we've got very human characters, like the old lady who we've
She's
spent
the worst.
time with.
Eat him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent enough time with her, and yet still she tried to stab him for her own freedom. She talks about selling him off. She talks about like, oh, let's do all these things. So I think that one thing that this series is doing is examining the human condition.
Yeah.
And that natural human instinct of dehumanizing someone that's different, which is exactly what we're examining with Gugu, and then what Gugu was doing to Fushi. And I think that there's quite a few parallels between the two with that instinctual, oh, you're different. You're not human. So I'll treat you this. Your pain doesn't matter. Who cares? You're going to heal in a second. But then also Gugu was treated as an experiment by having, when the old man put the extra organ in him, he's like, I can experiment with this kid. He's basically dead. I'm saving his life. Now I'm going to experiment with alcohol. just the same, Gugu was experimenting with and devaluing him and not treating him as a valuable, essential human whose consent and respect is important, right? So we're seeing those parallels of that human condition, and we're watching someone who's a victim of it as well as someone who is naturally inclined to do it without thought, you know?
Yeah. So we're seeing, in a way, a kind of Frankenstein trope at play here.
Yeah. I don't ever get tired of that, man. Examining the human condition. What makes people act the way they do? What makes them inclined towards these certain things that, if amplified, cause devastation? Let's look at it on the micro level. Like, I don't get tired of that.
I don't either. And, you know, as with Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, it's not the created being that's the monster. It's the dude who does the creating who acts monstrously. And this,
they both acted monstrously.
Blues Man, I mean, he's like a drunk Dr. Frankenstein, and you know, without
in a way
enough thought about the repercussions on the person that he was experimenting on. In a way, it's kind of funny and it's weird and quirky, but also, what are you doing to this kid? You know, so he's obviously not quite right himself. But yeah, I agree. The humanity of the created thing, Frankenstein or Gugu as he becomes, with the helmet, and we don't exactly know what he looks like, but he's got some kind of apparatus in his stomach with alcohol in it. It's his humanity, I think, that is the strongest in this volume. Like, he's the most human character, even though he's the monster.
Old man is?
No, Gugu. Gugu is the most human character, even though he's the one who's called monster.
I gotcha.
He's by far the most compassionate, most empathetic. He objects when what's her name? Pioran and Booze Man are talking about how they can exploit Fushi. He very, compassionately, yes, he had a crush on her, but he saves Reen, but then later never even mentions that he saved her life.
It was nothing. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get this disfigurement? Nothing.
Yeah. Better not.
Now, him saying nothing is out of fear of rejection. Like, if you know that I'm the one that gave you that scar, then you won't want to be around me anymore. Which again is a very childlike logic. Like, of course she's going to be happy you saved her life, and that'll help her maybe reckon with this scar a little bit more, because she thinks that this happened because of someone who hated her, instead of someone who loved her and was trying to save her. Yeah. So I think they're probably going to have a conversation about that. But I do like as well that in that scene when she's talking about this scar that she's amplified in her life, and this life that she's had where she's not been given her own agency, her own dreams, her own desires aren't given any credence. And then he, in turn, disregards all those things. And he's like, really? That's what you've got to worry about in life? Like, which, fair enough. But all these things, with all that, she still is telling him, let me see your face. I just want to get to know you better. I don't care about this. This doesn't matter to me. I care about you, the person. And so your face. And that's another reason why I kind of think, I feel like we're going to see it, or at least she is, because she's going to be proof of concept. You know, people who don't know him and don't care about him have balked when they've seen him. And she maybe is going to see him and say, yeah, you look like Gugu to me. You know, like it's the same thing, right?
I think so. Yeah. And also I really love that it's both of them in that act of him saving her become disfigured, although hers is visibly less severe than what he got.
Yeah.
But it's something that connects them. She doesn't know it yet, but it is her scar connects her to him. And I like the notion that I think what might be getting explored here is our human imperfection, and that there is beauty in imperfection and in difference. And even sometimes we learn from people we initially might feel are monstrous or different in some way. We actually can learn compassion from them. So I think that maybe where this could go, and it kind of does go there, I think a little bit in this volume, is what we learn, and I hope this is what Fushi is going to learn from all of this, is that there's beauty in difference. and we have a lot to learn from those that we perceive as being different in one way or another. Hopefully that's where it goes. Although there's some indication at the end, I wonder what you made of that, where the creator dude comes along. I think he's going to be a regular.
Yeah.
And says, okay, it's time for you to go. You got to learn something useful here. I think he is learning something useful. He's learning compassion, and creator dude doesn't get it yet. But okay, so first,
he wants him to get stronger so that he can
stronger.
defeat the enemy, right?
Like the knockers. Yeah,
I think you're right. Sorry, it doesn't sound good, does it?
Gugu knockers.
It's not great. It's okay. Yeah. So I'm glad your head goes there too, because it's like I can't look at that with a straight face.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry.
I think you're right though.
Fushi's got to contend with the knockers.
Because the thing that he is learning is compassion and humanity, even in those that are different from us, and all these wonderful things. But even in the battle, we see him where he's like, "Go away! I don't want you to be a victim in this fight. It's me, right?" And then it's the companionship. That's what ends up saving Fushi.
That's
in
right.
The end.
That's right. When he was. Creator guy was like, hey, you need to leave. These people have nothing usul for you. And Gugu saves Fushi.
And he's the one that saved him. Exactly. Fushi would still be a stone if not for Gugu. So I think what he's learning is the value of companionship and the value of that not living in isolation and living in unity with other people and having that. And that's exactly what was shown in the fight, which, by the way, Gugu was awesome in that fight.
Gugu's awesome. Yeah. I am a little bit worried, though, and I'm sure you caught this reference as well, in the process of allowing Fushi to remain. I think the creator dude seems to be able to see the future to some degree, because he says, all right, I'll let you stay, but you're going to lose these people. They're going to, I felt like he was hinting that maybe Gugu or the others, I don't know, they're going to somehow meet a tragic end or something like that. Which, even if it happens, that's also a lesson about life, because you cannot have love and companionship without loss and grief. That's the deal.
Do you think he was saying you can stay, but you're going to lose them because Fushi is attracting... Sorry, I need to prop up my foot. Because Fushi is attracting danger, and so by doing that, he's leaving them vulnerable? Or do you think he was just saying, in a matter of fact, mortality, these humans are mortal, so you are going to lose them eventually?
Yeah, I think so. I think he just thought he was being practical.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I feel like Fushi's going to end up wiser than his creator, perhaps, by learning from very flawed but beautiful people like March and Gugu about compassion and about empathy. And so we'll see if that's where it's actually going. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least at the moment. So.
Yeah, because Fushi could just be collecting strength, but instead he's collecting humanity.
Yeah. That's right. Which, I think that one could, even from just a purely like scientific evolutionary perspective, maybe there's strength in compassion. Maybe it's actually a useful trait to have. So just floating that out there,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, I love, just going back to talking about the battle itself, I love that Fushi took the time to still acknowledge what was going on with Reen and still try to help her in whatever way he could, while also still maintaining the urgency of the battle that needed to happen, and taking on all that alcohol and potentially damaging his body, all that in order to create these flames. It was such a great... I'm loving the action in this series. I think the way she draws the enemy, the knockers, the way she draws them is so creepy and gross.
Really cool.
awesome. Yeah. And then the way she's drawing these battles between Fushi and the Knockers looks amazing. But then adding on Gugu as well and the fire that he had to bring to the battle. I'm just loving both
Yeah.
the visuals and the on the technical side, how clear she makes everything. She's doing an amazing job with the action sequences.
I agree. The only thing that bothers me is I like trees. So I'm sad that the Knockers are like tree things.
Yeah. They're abusing nature.
Yeah, maybe that's what I mean, they're not really trees, I guess. They're not ents or something like that, right? So
I don't know, because in the one battle in a previous volume, the knocker did turn into a tree once it was defeated. So I don't know if it's inhabiting a tree and animating it, or if it's its own thing and then it just turns into a brand new tree when it's defeated. I still don't really understand how all that's
yeah,
going.
they seem bad, but maybe we'll get a different view of the Knockers in the future. Who knows? You know.
Don't say that, Philip. Don't word it like that.
I mean, I like trees. What can I say? So I want them to be nice. Nice
Yeah.
Knockers.
Stop it!
Sorry.
So we know that they get a little bit older in this, and I love when
time jumps. My goodness, this series, woo, like years. Okay, Gugu's like muscle bound now. I think.
I know. I love when Gugu was a kid and he was like, "I'm trying to get my own agency or my own whatever he said," and he was doing pull-ups, and Fushi's like, "Cool, me too," and he like kicks him, and he's like, "Go away! This is not something that you're supposed to be doing. This is my thing, me."
Right.
But he does. He's persistent, as we've seen from him in the past. He makes the best of the situation he's in. He gets stronger. He becomes, he's able to do more around the shop. And then we also have Fushi, whose language seems to be improving. He's got stubble. He's got acne. Like, he's actually growing like a human, which, I mean, I never even considered was a possibility. Does that mean that March, too, is aging? When we see March again, is she going to be a little girl?
Huh.
Because this is a dead person. I thought that he would be isolated at this point in time of his death, but he's not. Yeah. He's aging. So is March aging in the background?
Oh, okay. Huh. That's a good question. Is Fushi in his boy form aging actually? Like, does he look older?
That's the way I interpreted it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he's growing stubble, he's getting acne. His face
he's growing a little beard.
Yeah, his face looked a little bit more defined, as if he's growing up a little bit.
So you're right. Yeah, there seems to be a thing being introduced here where
does he not look more like a teenager and less like a little boy there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's interesting. So yeah, will March age? Will the wolf and the bear age along with the boy? Yeah.
Questions we have to find out next time.
Yeah, a lot of questions in here, including the question, why am I me? Which is a question that comes up several times. Gugu really is the one who asks it. But in relation to somebody like Reen, for example, who seems to be born with everything and has this, from the outside, wonderful life. But then you realize as she's speaking, as you mentioned before, there are so many restrictions on her existence that it's actually not such a happy life, really, is it? And then you meet her parents and you really think, oh, that's kind of too bad for her, right?
Yeah.
So why am I me? I think is a question a lot of people kind of wonder about. And it's often in a negative light. I think, why do I have to go through this? Why is this thing about me bad or whatever? But I think Gugu does a great job of flipping that in a way. And near the end, he's asking again, why am I me? And now he's shaped himself. He's made himself strong, and he even admits, I hated myself back then, but now he seems to be more comfortable. Like he's found a place, found a family, right?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I'm excited to see where their journey takes us. This is definitely a series that confronts the mortality of humanity. So we will very likely watch more characters that we grow to love die.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to see where else their journey takes us, how long we get to spend with them, and all that. I feel like this is 3 volumes in and still a very unpredictable series. Like, I have no idea what we're in for.
I'm going to make a bold prediction, Murphy.
Do it.
Okay. I'm probably so wrong. But so we're assuming, I was assuming anyway, that creator dude was sort of good and that there's some other creator bad dude out there that's making the knockers and all that. And that good, our creator dude that we've seen is trying to basically foster life or understand it or whatever through Fushi. What if creator dude is actually wrong? What if creator dude is a bit arrogant and is actually, maybe it's not good and evil like at first seem? What if there is a point behind whatever is behind the knockers? What if there is something more there? Maybe it's just because I like trees that I'm going on in this direction.
No. That fits with the theming of
Yeah.
there's humanity and what's monstrous.
Yeah.
So obviously the knockers are deemed monsters that are our
Right.
enemy that we have to defeat.
Right.
So it's certainly possible.
What if they're just trying to make friends?
Yeah, probably not that. They're literally stealing pieces of who Fushi is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We also, I mean, we're kind of past this point in the conversation, but I would be remiss not to mention that we did see some very strong humanity in a common man, in like somebody who's not a main character. When Gugu was walking around with that helmet, and the man offered, "You just come into my family, just be one of my kids. I'll take you in."
So nice. Yeah, the guy that was like a farmer or whatever.
Just a common man, just a guy who was in the story, and he didn't matter. But I really, really like that the mangaka allowed it to not just be the main characters that show that humanity and that kindness, but that you can see that in the world there is kindness. In the world there are people who can see past what's different and love you. And you know, Gugu did end up getting chased away by somebody who didn't want to show him that love and that compassion. Yeah, by the son. But he had a place to live. He had a place to be loved. And as you said, if he did choose to stick around, then probably the son and probably others would have gotten used to what was different about him and been able to start seeing past that as well.
You would hope.
You would hope. Yeah, not every person would, but you would hope. But it is nice to see humanity and kindness and tenderness and love in some random person that isn't relevant to the story.
That is such a great point, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was a touching moment for me.
It was.
When that he calls him boss because he had worked for him. You know, he was just a kind man.
Yeah.
And he, poor Gugu points out, well, I guess you're not nice like your father, you know, when the son chases him away, essentially. But he leaves again. Gugu leaves out of a sense of, yeah, I do want to spare this family the sorrow of having to.
The cost, yeah. The social cost.
Yeah, the social cost. Exactly. Yeah. That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he leaves out of compassion. So
yeah, Gugu's an incredible character. Like he's so sweet.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I'm so glad we got to meet him in this volume, and I hope he sticks with us for a while.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to get too attached to anybody here because people die in this series.
Yeah, but is the series not teaching us that life, even short-lived, is valuable and has impact and matters?
That's so true.
Is that series? No, wait, that was How to Eat. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. That was a different series that taught me that.
What? Okay.
Never mind. There was a different manga I was reading before that was one of the core messages.
Well, I think it applies here too, without any pancreas eating.
Without eating any pancreases.
Right. That's funny.
I think you'd like that, by the way. If
okay.
You decide to pick it up.
We'll put it on the list.
Anyway, on that note, thanks for joining me, Philip. Thank you, everybody who is watching this and commenting. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate getting to chat with y'all about this series. So we will see you next week on Philip's channel, which is always linked in the description, for our discussion on Volume 4. Bye.
Bye, everybody.